In this video, we are going to look at the elite units of the Ossiarch Bonereapers, focusing on the Stalkers, the Immortis Guard, and the Archai and Harbingers, following on from the General's Handbook 2020 points changes. And we are back from the break, and now we're going to talk about the elite OBR units and the legions, and then we've got some questions from the Twitterverse to address all things boney.
Isn't every unit elite, kind of?
Yep.
Yeah.
But
basically, yeah, right.
It's almost a problem with the book that the battle line are essentially, you have to have them. They're expensive and they're so elite, the elite units become less viable.
Yeah.
So it's normally that any of the choices which can boost your battle line effectiveness are more effective because they have a synergistic effect rather than on their own stand up. But now that the points have been addressed, so because when you write an OBR list, everything was 200, so your Stalkers were 200, your Mortis Guard were 200, your Archai and Harbingers were 210 for some bizarre reason, even though they're worse. And then you know, your Crawlers were 200, your Harvesters were 200. So you had this really weird thing that if you had 180 points left, the only thing you could buy is a battle line unit or a hero.
Yep.
But they're 130. So then you've got 50, 60 points left, and you don't want to buy a command point because you can't use them.
A spell in there. You just always
can't have allies.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what on earth do I do with 70 points?
Yeah.
And then you end up in this weird jiggling of thing, trying to get 600, 800 points left at the end, where you could then just go right 2 Crawlers and a Harvester, or that's 6 Stalkers and 3 Immortis Guard, or well, you wouldn't do that because it's not a Harvester or a Catapult. So, but now you've got 180 points and 190 point units. Sometimes you write a list and you're just like 10 points ticked over too much. You're like, you're 15-10 and you're like, oh, so that's a bad example. 14-10 and you're like, if I was 1400, I'd have 600 points left. But I don't. I have 590 points.
Yep.
So I can't get 3 elite things in. But now you can. You could get a unit of Harbingers and 2 Catapults. So you've got a little bit more speedy combat. So
it makes it easy to jump with formations as well, doesn't it? Because the formations aren't in multiple. So it allows you to add up to close to 2,000 point list that way too.
Yeah, and the formations are super important for getting your drops down. So, like I was saying, if you're running like Catacross or you want to dictate the turn, OBR actually not too bad at being bullied because they're just so good they don't care. They're just like whatever. So I think you can just ignore that and go whatever. But we're going to talk about the elite units a little bit and if are we going to see them. And I hope so, but yeah, we'll talk about them. So
Cool.
First, I want to talk about the Stalkers because they're probably my favourite at the elite.
They're the Tyranid warrior guys, right? The ones with the multiple arms, no shield. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just Tyranid warriors. Yeah, but yeah,
you need to explain to me in like the visual way. Like, they're
the four-armed.
I get told off for cabbage, and you're coming out with that crap.
It's these guys, the cover, the poster boys from the book. So
the man of many faces, old He-Man wrestler.
Yeah, so the when was it Mano Faces? Well, I don't even remember.
That's it. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah. It was where you used to. It's cool, but obviously, if you can get over the fact of building these, hobby atrocities of cleaning up 4 heads for 1, and well, actually, I think it's 5 pieces for the head. So you can.
They look like but don't they? Let's cover the important stuff.
They are awesome, like once you've got them built, but they are a chore to build those. Honestly, obviously I know why because it's such a complicated kit, but it's so
that's the thing, isn't it, with those sorts of stuff, when you get like that high-end, really, really detailed kit with multiple parts that can provide different sort of like unit choices in a box, the kits always take a little bit of building, but once you built them, they look cool, which is the main thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And with these guys, they come in at 180 points now. They've gone down 20. 6-inch move, 4 wounds, 4 up save. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the scroll. But they've got basically Spirit Blades, but 1 in 3 can have Dread Falchions. and they're basically 4s and 3s or 3s and 3s, Ren 2, Ren 1, or damage 2, damage 1 respectively. So they're fairly choppy in combat. They look a little bit slow at movement of 6, 4 wounds and a 4-up save. Now, one of the things that these guys have is a command ability which allows you to pick a Stalker unit, and you can re-roll run and charge rolls into a next hero phase, and you can also move across terrain as if you can fly.
That's cool.
The only thing about this which is really weird is when you do it, and it's at the start of your hero phase. So you almost have to do it before you do anything else and say they're going to be using this ability, which is a bit bizarre. But in the right circumstances can be devastating, particularly if you sucker somebody in by, if there's a massive piece of terrain, like, you know, like a big tower, like a skull fort or something like that, and you're the other side of it, and then you just go, well, I'm going to spend this ability, and then I'm going to boost their move, and they're going to come across here, and particularly if you're playing Stalliarch Lords and they get run and charge, you're re-rolling the run, you're re-rolling the charge, they become quite fast.
Plus 3 as well. That's available.
Yeah, 9-inch move plus a d6 run with a reroll plus a 2d6 charge with a reroll.
All right.
Moving over terrain like it's not there. So it's effectively, it's also good protection because you can sit opposite a piece of big terrain and they can't get to you because unless they fly.
Yeah.
So you can do this almost like you used to do with ethereal units back in the day when you'd sit behind something like that and just pop over the top, do your thing, then pop back again. So,
well, like Skyfires, when they used to jump over stuff, didn't they? See the corner of it, fly straight over the top of the train, and tag into it.
Yeah.
They have to be treated like Lone Rangers, I think, this unit, and I think that's why people wouldn't consider putting them in the list. To some degree, somewhat similar with the horses, but that's why people should consider picking them. Because everything else wants to be next to other stuff potentially, and then they can just go off and handle something like solo. Fine. So.
Well, this is why this unit's so good, because what they've got is their ability is quadrat aspects, and this is start of the combat phase. You pick one of these aspects. One of them gets you to reroll to hit, one of them gets to reroll saves, one of them gets to reroll to wound, and one is to improve the rend and damage by 1.
Just all great. Like boney man-eaters.
Yeah, and they're also Hekatos units, so they can use things like the +3 move. If you're in a legion, they can use the legion ability because they're a Hekatos unit. So you could actually, if you're in Petrifix, for example, you could improve their rend with bludgeon, even if they're not near a hero. They get a death save because they're Hekatos. So they are completely independent and they can run roughshod. The problem with these is you can't bring them back because they've got 4 wounds. You can never bring one back from the dead. So they are one of those things where you're like, if one of them dies, it's quite a big blow to output. So you can heal them, but you can't bring a 4 wound model back. So that does make them a little bit more fragile. But the point is they are an elite chopper unit. Now, having the reroll saves is a great option as well because it's the start of a combat phase, so it doesn't say your phase. So if they charge you and they're going to go for it, you could go, well, I'm going to reroll saves this time and just absorb that damage, hit you back, and then, you know, next turn if it's you go first, and then you could go +1 damage, +1 rend. So this unit for me is super versatile, it's super independent, it is relentless discipline cheap, but because you don't need to spend relentless to use those aspects. But I'll caveat that with, if you want to get the most out of this unit, you're gonna have to put some discipline in, and that means they become a very tempting unit to splurge 3 or 4 points on in a turn.
Yeah.
You know, you immediately go, well, I'm going to make them extra move, I'm going to make them fly over terrain, I'm going to make them +1 attack, and I've spent 3 discipline on this unit. And then you fail your charge, or you go in and you don't roll very well, and that's a massive sink of points for something.
Is that a reason to do +6 for us? If like, obviously you have to manage it and hopefully not spaff your load on them too much, but is the fact that they are so tempting a reason to take a 6 rather than 3s? Or
I think 3s are really good independent units that if you've got 180 points and you just want a unit that's effective and could be versatile, you can stick these in and just don't spend any points on them and just use them as they are. And they just go and maybe they support with 5 Kavalos Deathriders or something like that. They're just a flanking unit. They go and take an objective. They support a unit of Immortis Guard, something like that. I think the Immortis Guard in a free is better, and I think if you take these, you probably want to run 6. One of the things I will mention is that in Stalliarch Lords, they become particularly good.
Run and charge one.
Yeah, so they can run and charge. So as I said earlier, they get to re-roll both of those rolls, and they're fast anyway. So outside of Stalliarch Lords, they become a little bit more predictable, a little bit slower. So obviously, as well, with Stalliarch Lords, you've got things like rally back. So you can basically use this ability that can retreat and charge in the same turn. So they can retreat and charge. So you can use them to leapfrog round units. They don't fly when you do this, but you can obviously like almost springboard round. Especially if you double turn, go in and fight something, you might not kill it, you might be pinned, and you go, well, I'm going to retreat, and now I'm going to charge the thing behind.
It's pretty unique. It doesn't exist much in Age of Sigmar. It's very strong.
No, exactly, and I think that costs a relentless discipline point, but I think that's a really good ability to get these guys, and these guys are like hunter killers. They are super choppy. So I think that's great. Again, like it's okay. I mean, I think Stalliarch Lords they become a lot more threatening. I think if you're running them in like Praetorian, they're okay, but they are a bit slow.
There's not a place for them in the others, particularly unless you are just having 3 Aslo Rangers useful, which is
no, exactly. And I think I know there's probably people out there that are like, why aren't you talking about Ivory Host? And honestly, I just don't think Ivory Host is match play viable. If you want to take the best thing, you can still play it, but I just don't. It doesn't. It has a negative to it, and there's a lot of caveats about how you use it. So I will talk about that when we talk about the legions. But I think for these guys, if you're going to take a lot of these, there's also a formation which I'll make sure I get the right one because I think it's the Deathglaive, but I always get these mixed up.
Skull Bros, Deathglaive, Blood Chalice.
So the Katakrosian Deathglaive, which is 2 units of Stalkers and 1 unit of Harbingers. Now, what this is really good is after armies are set up, but before the first battle round, if all units are wholly within 12 of the Morghast Harbingers, you can move any units of the battalion up to 6 inches.
Oh, wow.
So you get a 6-inch boost move before the game starts. Now, the fact that you can put these on the line, move them 6, move 9, then run, then charge, re-rolling.
Yep.
It's very heavy on discipline, but the alpha strike on that is real. And the Harbingers and movement 9 anyway with fly. So
I like them. It very similar roles as how you described these guys, but the Harbingers, there's less ways to customize their output and stuff like that. But they do just vanilla fly and are fairly fast and are they 6 wounds apiece or something?
What, the Harbingers? I think so. Yeah. They are. We'll get onto those in a sec in more detail, but they're 6 wounds. But they get a 3d6 charge, don't they? And charge within 18. Yeah. So they're super reliable alpha. I don't know if you've got the sustainability and the damage output to really decimate an army. So anyone with screens, and if you've lent that heavily into these guys, you probably don't have any catapults. It does work really well with Stalliarch Lords, and if you take the formation and take cavalry and take the other formation, which is the Death Lance, I think you can get to quite a low drop, and you can also get the artifact in, which is the Helm of the Ordained, which is a bonus to hit to everything within a range. I think the list I wrote was 2 Kavalos, Liege Kavalos, and then some cavalry, the 2 formations, and then 2 big units of Stalkers and unit of Harbingers, and that's
so cool.
An interesting army, but I don't think it's that effective.
Good team event list, do you think?
No, no. I think OBR in team you lean on their strengths, which is tar pit Mortec with crematorium and harvesters with catapults and support, or you just lean into Catacross and the catapults and being a balanced all rounder and allowing your other armies to be specialised because they do everything so well. You can write a really effective balanced OBR list that doesn't really care about anything really apart from effective Ren shooting, which is in scarce supply. But I think we've lost Les, but I'm sure he'll join back in.
Les didn't agree.
No,
so he's gone.
He's rage quit. No, we will have I think we will have an upsurge in Ren shooting. Because of KO, because of change host, you need shooting to deal with change host. So I think OBR will be, and even change host really hurts OBR. So I think you're gonna. It's difficult because there's not a lot of gaming going on right now, but I think that OBR have got a lot weaker purely because the meta's shifted, not necessarily because OBR have got weaker.
Yeah, well, it's happened twice. They've lost their save, and then other stuff's kind of like Lumineth. They don't particularly have Ren shooting, but they have very good, reliable, smallish amount of mortal wound shooting. So
yeah,
that's quite scary too.
Yeah, and I think having the shooting from, and we're back with Les, with Sentinels.
Internet drop. Sorry.
We just said you didn't agree with what I said, and you rage quit.
Yeah, I was like, get out. Yeah.
So yeah, I think Stalkers, big thumbs up from me. 180 points. I think they're less survivable, but they do more damage. So I think they do something that you don't have, and having that high rend and that ability to go an extra rend. I mean, rend free, damage free on the Dread Falchions is scary. Yep. AF, especially when you've got 4 attacks a model, whether you've boosted it and they're hitting on 2s, hitting on 3s because you've got Catacross and things like that. So these guys are really good. Are they going to see much play? Maybe. I think if I'm running them, I want to run a 6. I don't think 3 is worthwhile, and that's purely because these boys, which is the Immortis Guard, which you don't see at all actually, and I'll talk about why I like these guys. So these guys are a bit slower. Movement 5, 4 wins. They've got a better save of a 3 up. That's already a bonus. But if you've got Catacross, they've got a 2+ save, which is nothing to be sniffed at. Now, the one thing I like about these guys is they've got a 2-inch reach. Now, if you stand these behind a wall of Mortec Guard, you're going to be into some halberd hacky goodness.
What's the goal unit?
Freeze and freeze, rend 2, damage 2 attacks each. It's okay. They've also got a shield, which is only 1-inch reach. But the shield's got an interesting ability that if they roll a 6, it does a mortal wound on the shields. Yeah, and I think one of the things is they've got a command ability, which is a bit weird, that you can use in a combat phase after the guard have fought, and any unit within 3, if it's within 3 of an enemy unit, it could pile an attack with the shields only. So it's almost like a second shield bash attack, which honestly is a kind of an inefficient way of using your discipline.
It's not going to come into it much, but if you left one thing alive on 2, it's like, yes, hell yes.
Yeah, and that allows you then to be free. So it gives you an option to have a second bite of the cherry. If you roll under average and you leave something alive, just with like 1 or 2 wins, you just think, God, I just really needed to kill that thing. You could just go, sod it, I'll spend the point and go.
Movement, right? Like it's not particularly common, but you are getting a pile in. You could have.
Yeah, it might allow you to get to an objective. It might allow you to kill the extra 2 models you need to capture an objective. It might allow you to finish off a big piece. So the difficulty with it is you don't normally have a relentless discipline point left at the end of this point because you're going to the end of the combat phase. Especially if you're going second. If you're going first in a round, you probably do have a discipline point left. But then you've got to weigh that up with, do I spend that point knowing full well they've got a turn coming back at me and I might need it for my saves or something.
If they've, I could be wrong here, but if on the wording of that ability, do they have to have someone within 3 to be able to pile in, or?
Yeah, it says that if the unit is within 3 of an enemy unit. So,
Okay.
and then the Soulbound Protectors rule, which is quite interesting. So, if you allocate a wound or mortal wound to a friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper hero, which is within 3 of this unit on a 2+, it gets allocated to this unit instead. So, if you are using Nagash or Arcan, it allows you to absorb damage from them.
That's quite a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it almost makes them a lot harder to alpha strike. So if you're running Nagash, it's a viable option to put a unit of these guys in, or Arcan.
Yeah.
They are expensive for this, but they're not rubbish in combat either. And for me, having the reach where you can put them behind Morghast Guard to protect them, not that they particularly need protecting because they've got a decent armor save and stuff, but I think because of the healing and you can't put them back, you don't really want them to be focused. So they're pretty good. I think they're definitely a different role to the Stalkers.
Yeah, but less obvious, I think, in terms of what they can do.
Yeah, and I personally do like them. I think they've got a place in the army, but it's hard to find a spot for them. I think there's so much competition for the 200 point mark. I think they're one of the least appealing choices.
See, Nagash and them in crematoriums, like them behind some Mortis Guard that are causing wounds when they die, and keeping Nagash alive against shooting.
I think the problem is that if you've got Nagash, you're probably not going to have 180 points spare for this unit.
Yeah.
And I think if you've got crematorium, then 20 points more, you've got Harvester. So if you're not playing either of those, you go, well, I'd rather have the speed and offensive ability of the Stalkers than the defensive aspect of these, and sometimes you might not want to take the damage on these.
Yeah,
you might want the hero to get hurt because you know full well you can heal the wounds back.
It's not like the army struggles with being defensive, is it? Let's face it, the others, they fulfill something that the army does struggle with, which is reaching out and touching people with something that's a lone ranger. And then the army is one of the best armies that has ever existed in Age of Sigmar at being resilient and also doing good damage in a slow-moving blob. So, like, you've got other things, multiple other things that do that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if they come into their own in like a more, if you focused on these and you took like 2 6s and you used them in place of like Morghast Guard of your like main frontline troops, I'd be interested to see how they fare. If you're not going to take healing characters, because it's only Arcan and Nagash Catacross and the Shaper that does it at a shorter range, but basically if you're not relying on healing anyway, whether or not just having units of these guys with 10 Mortex stood in front of them and you take 3 blobs like that, because there is a formation which has these in it and the Morghast Archai. So I wonder if these would be good in Ivory Host actually. When I get to Ivory Host, I'll look at that. But that'd be
a nice way to run an OBR list without a massive amount of small base models, wouldn't it? It's a very cool, different looking list. It'd be fun to play with and against.
Yeah, it would look really cool because it's like that relentless shield march, like shield wall. But there's the Aegis Immortal Battalion, which is 1 Archai unit and 2 units of guard. And then it basically gives you soulbound protectors on the Archai, but also, which is that 2 up, that bounce the wound. But also, once you do that on a 5 up, the wound's negated instead of being allocated. So, nice. Like, you would do your save, you would then say, right, it's going to now bounce to my guys on 2 up. Now I'm going to see if I'm going to ignore it completely again. So it kind of double bite on that ignore. So, but again, that's very good because that means that every 3 wounds you absorb, one of them will be ignored on average. So I think that makes it really efficient, especially if you're running heroes with them, like maybe a Leech Kavalos, or even if Arcan's in the list. She might find like a Null Myriad Aegis Immortal with Arcan. Arcan would be an absolute pain to get rid of. You've got some healing, you've got the bouncing, and you've still got these units that relentlessly march at the table. And when they get in combat, they do a lot of damage. I mean, they're Rend 2, damage 2. I mean, there's nothing to be sniffed at. I think they've got a really cool. It will have a cool aesthetic. I don't know if it's that particularly powerful, but I could see a Null Myriad army with Arcan leaning into this formation would be quite an interesting army to play with.
Absolutely. Can the Kavalos buff their attacks?
Yes. So Kavalos has the Endless Duty, which gives them +1 attacks. That'll affect their shield and their halberds. So there'll be 3 attacks from the halberd and 3 from the shields. And then obviously if you pile in again and attack again. Yeah, so I think a good list might be Deathriders for your troops, 3 units of 5, with the character, so the Kavalos, the Liege Kavalos, Arcan, 2 units of these boys in a 6, a unit of Archai, maybe a 4 if you can fit it in, maybe 2 and then a catapult or something like that if you need it, but maybe use the Archai for the reach, or Arcan's magic as a way to get things, and then you just lean into the fact that you're basically going to use your speed to get your Death Riders around the sides. You use these 2 blobs moving up the table with the Kavalos, and just be like, well, if you can't really kill the Kavalos because they'll absorb the damage, they've got a 3-up save, you've got the anti-magic if someone wants to try and mortal wound you, so it could be pretty good. It's, wouldn't say it's the best army in the world, but it's certainly competitive, viable. I think a great club army if you play at a club. I think it'll be an interesting game, and then no one's going to complain about it, I don't think. Well, I'm sure someone will actually, but
someone always complains. But...
it's yeah. So that's a Mortis Guard. So Harbingers and Archai. So I mean, these guys haven't changed really, other than they come down in points. So I mean, they're effectively, Harbingers are faster, and what you can do is either give them halberds or swords. You've got this ability which is -1 bravery of enemy units within 6 of the Morghasts, which is a bit situational, but could be quite good if you're leaning into that. But the 3d6 charge on these boys, but I think you only take these, and this is both units, I think, if you're trying to unlock one of those formations. I think if you've got 190 points left, you're better off putting a unit of Stalkers or a unit of Immortis Guard rather than the Harbingers or the Archai.
Or the horses?
Yeah, potentially. I think the horses do a similar job, probably better.
An elite unit, they kind of fall between the two, but they're an elite unit that can get healed, which I think is the really important thing with them. Obviously, you've got to be within range or whatever, but bringing back an entire 3 wounds tough horse hits pretty hard. It's a thing.
Yeah, I think for me with the Harbingers and the Archai, because they've got 6 wounds, they're quite hard to remove a model before you get your chance to heal them if you've got healing in your list. The fact that the halberd is Rend 2 damage 3 with a 2-inch reach is really good, and you could put it on the Harbingers now, because you never used to be able to. They used to have the spirit swords. I think potentially the swords are better because you get 5 attacks, 3s, Rend 1 damage 2, but the halberds, because they're a bit swingy, but OBR have got quite a lot of ways to make the hit roll more reliable. They can be quite good. I think it's difficult to know which one to take. I think the spirit swords are more reliable, but the halberds have more damage potential, like from a swing point of view.
In Petrifex as well, you could buff that Rend by 1, right?
Yeah, if I was Petrifex, I'd probably always go with the swords, because you go to Rend 2, and you don't really need Rend 3. Honestly, it's a bit overkill.
Oh, I love it. I love when you roll for someone and they've got, whenever someone's got a 4+ save and you're like, so that's that, and this is just straight through to wounds, and they damage 3, that's devastating.
Yeah, I suppose it's every potential save they make is 3 damage they're not taking, right? So it's I think the Archai are quite interesting because obviously they get the mortal wound save on a 5-up. So they've almost come down in effectiveness because of the Handbook change, where you don't get the death save as well. So they've almost got worse. Yes. So I think for me that I would never take Archai unless I'm running that formation where I have to take them. Because out the two, I'd always take the Harbingers. If I had to choose between the two, the Harbingers, I'd rather have the speed.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, you've got the same choice of damage.
Yeah, it's a threat, right? It's a big deal. And jumping over things, like a lot of units, it's very easy to protect against a normal 2d6 jumping over the top charge. But it is really hard, especially if you just got 2 of them as well. It's very, very hard to protect against a small footprint that could be like 10 or 11 inches on average. That's very, very difficult to protect against.
Yeah, and now the others don't get you the buff, like you said, with the saves. You may as well just take the faster ones and like make that charge more reliable. I mean, being able to charge outside of 18, at 18 is also, really handy. That one time that you get in the 18-inch charge is, it's amazing.
It was like move 12 before that, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, I still don't know whether I'd take them. I love the models. It's a shame because I think the models look amazing. But I don't know whether knowing what little I do know about OBR, mostly from playtesting and playing against it, I never really took the Morghasts. It was always, I'd always take the Stalkers and stuff.
Thank you very much for watching. If you agree with what we said, let us know. If you disagree with what we said, let us know. Please like the video, comment and subscribe. And if you've got any suggestions for future, please pop them below. We read each and every one, and it really does give us some amazing ideas for future shows and stuff like that. Please follow us on social media, particularly Twitter. Before some shows, we'll put out just a quick, this is the comment, we've got this topic, what are the questions? And if you let us know then, address them immediately whilst we're recording, which is really useful. Also, check out our dice, which are available from Element Games. They're super gorgeous, and they're while stocks last, so you can support us by purchasing them there.